All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Other Minds and Hands.
We're
here. I am joined by Maggie again today, who's been missing her the last few weeks. But of course, not only are we collectively joined on the show by Maggie, I am joined personally.
In person.
We're actually sitting next to each other today, and not
been a while
with an ocean between us here. So that's a lot of fun. And we are at the premises of Studio Lab here in Derry, New Hampshire. We're not in the same studio where I was shooting last week. We're in a separate little studio today, where we're going to be doing some trailer discussion.
Yeah.
So we are excited. We've been talking this afternoon about the new show that's coming.
There's some things coming up. I don't know if you guys have heard or not, but
yeah. there's some things happening.
There's some stuff going on.
Yeah.
And Corey's been at San Diego Comic-Con, obviously, so we got to hear a bit about that last week, and loads of content came out of that. And
oh my goodness,
we probably won't pick apart all of it because we're not really concise in that respect. But
yes.
I think trailer analysis is something we both want to dig into. So.
Yeah, for sure. We haven't really gotten a chance to. It was one of the things that was kind of hard not being able to dig into the trailer right away as soon as it came out. But there's a lot to talk about, so I definitely want to have some discussion about that, and then maybe start for a couple minutes talking about the show that's coming. I told folks last week that we're going to be releasing an analysis show that's going to happen. It's going to be dropping probably Wednesdays after the show that each episode drops, and we're going to be talking about. We're going to be discussing the show. Remember that the sort of thing that I've been kind of preaching at Other Minds and Hands from the beginning, right? In order to really be thinking about an adaptation and how it works and how it's related to the text, we need to not just be sort of nitpicking superficial details,
right,
but we need to be thinking carefully about what is the show doing, what do we see in the show, what are the themes that it's developing, what is it doing with the characters, how is its story working, and then once we establish that, we can go back and do some in-depth comparisons of how those things compare and contrast to what we see in Tolkien's works. So that's what this show is going to be focused on. We're going to be talking about, the book to screen adaptation.
Yeah, it's going to be what you would expect from a reaction show, but it's not reacting. It's much more analysis. So
yeah.
We'll give kind of the recap. It's going to be Corey heavy, so believe it or not, he's going to stick to a time limit.
That's it. Well, there's going to be a different
challenge.
Environment. So of course, one of the ways in which this show is going to differ very much from the regular broadcasts that I do. We're not going to be broadcasting live, so that we're not going to have the normal sort of give and take that we can have with you folks during our sessions. These are all going to be pre-recorded here in the studio. Who's just done magnificent work in setting things up. We're really excited about this filming project. So it's going to be a totally pre-recorded, heavily produced.
This space
thing.
Is amazing. So what they've put in for what Corey's going to be able to analyze is just incredible. So yeah, there will be kind of an overview of each episode, a little bit of a summary, kind of giving the basic of what happened that episode, and then there will be some deep dives, but just a few deep dives, not as much as we do in Other Minds and Hands. And Other Minds and Hands will continue, but it might be a little bit more sporadic, or that's where we bring people in to talk about stuff. So that will be the interactive element.
Yeah.
But you'll have this wonderfully produced, awesome time with Corey to do a bit more of the reaction side of things.
Yeah, exactly. So this will be very much, a show that will be, dropped at regular points in the week that you can watch, and then you can come together to discuss with us at Other Minds and Hands. We may be changing up the schedule for Other Minds and Hands because life and the way it's going to be interacting with the show drop schedule and our show drop schedule and everything else. So there may be some changes coming for that.
We also don't know the show drop schedule yet. So, if they release 2 at the beginning, like many have, a lot of shows have dropped 2 episodes at the beginning, and then we'll do 1 weekly. We don't know how it's going to drop yet. So
I'm still fishing for that information so that we can plan. But yes, we'll see. We'll see what we can find there. But yeah, so be aware, be flexible of things that are things that are going to be changing, and we'll see how we do. We'll move forward with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so. Yeah, we're gonna see a title. We haven't decided on a title. Exactly.
Open to suggestions.
Open
if
to
you
some
got some
suggestions. Yeah, we're still kind of fishing for that. We're thinking, exploring Prime Video's Rings of Power is probably our like descriptive tagline. But some
something a little snappy that we can
Yeah.
remember a little bit more easily, that you don't have to explain with a lot of footnotes. We'll see.
Exactly. Some
Yeah.
kind of sort of catchy initial title. We're still.
Recapping rings.
Who knows?
There were quite
yeah.
a few options going around, so we'll see what we come up with. But
Exactly. But anyway,
exciting times.
it's going to be a lot of
Yeah.
fun. I am. This is going to be a totally new kind of project.
Yeah, and
really.
obviously this isn't normal. Like, I'm obviously not normally in New Hampshire, so this is my summer space. But in the future for this, I might drop in now and again, but I think I'll be much more behind the scenes for that. But you'll still see me in Other Minds and Hands.
Yeah. We'll still do Other Minds and Hands. The schedule probably won't be normal, but the format will be normal. But anyway, so there we go. So that's what's coming. It's gonna be really fun. So get yourself ready for that.
Pretty excited.
We're pretty excited. In the meantime, we're gonna look at some trailers. So I actually want to start with the 30-second trailer that we got the week before the big trailer came out. We got 2 trailers to talk about. I was on vacation when that dropped, and I was watching it on my phone while I was on vacation with my wife, and man,
Same.
can't talk about this.
Sitting in the car, and then you watch it on the big screen, and way
Yeah.
better. So I think the last thing we talked about was the teaser for the teaser.
Right.
So now we actually have the teaser and a full trailer.
Right. Yeah.
And you were in the room when the trailer dropped.
Yeah.
Things to
Yes.
talk about.
Yeah. That was. I have to say that the experience of being in the room with
That energy.
a crowd full of people was awesome. Watching the trailer, when we were all watching the trailer for the first time, it makes me really think about watching it, watching it together,
And just that the fan vibe,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
just, I don't know, it feels like watching a marathon or something. Everybody just gets so into it for this thing that you're achieving. But this is a little community that we get to geek out together, and you were in the room where it happened. If I can quote Hamilton.
Exactly. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. Looks like I'm having some stream quality issues. Well, apologize for that live. I don't know what funny internet things my laptop might be doing, but I should be able to. We should be able to have a higher quality version after, as I'm doing a local recording here, so we should be okay.
You
But
seem to be all right.
anyway, we'll do what we can. Okay, so let's look at the trailer.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so let's go over to.
So we're going to start with the short one, 30 seconds.
Yeah, let's start with the short 30-second one. Okay, here we go. Oh, hang on. I failed to play. There we go. Look at the land far away thing. Galadriel's journey. Now the exchange. Oh man, that shot. Oh,
And her intensity.
yes.
The legend begins, setting
Back to
some
Numenor.
foundations.
There's Elendil and Numenorean cavalry, possibly.
Oof,
All right.
that was a lot.
So much stuff. Hang on. So let's scrub back and look at images here. All right. So we start with, once again, we get very little context for the Harfoots here.
But they have now opened 2 trailers, correct?
Yes.
So they are kind of our entry point, and I think that's on purpose because they're the common man, right?
Yeah.
Like, here we are identifying with these people
Yeah.
of the earth, wanderers.
From the very first trailer, they've been a kind of framing mechanism almost, and that
friendly gatekeepers.
right. That
Welcome.
seems
Come
consistent.
watch this show.
And by the way, I love that as a technique. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that actually plays out in the show, because presumably their role unlike in the Lord of the Rings, where Tolkien
Hobbits
goes
are
out of his
vital.
he goes out of his way to make sure there's almost always a hobbit present,
Yeah.
right? I mean, even to the splitting up of Merry and Pippin, so we've got one in Rohan and one in Gondor, and then Frodo and
Yeah.
Sam. So we're never without a hobbit to
And
kind
all
of
are
mediate
really
the story
vital,
to us.
Like, we need
Yeah.
them to carry action forward.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if we'll have that with this, because we don't really know the story here, but I do find it a little bit harder to believe that this would focus on the importance of Harfoots.
Right.
I feel like they're going to be more...
Yeah. No, I don't think they're going to be quite as central to the.
They're more segues. I feel like they're going to connect things and maybe introduce things.
Yeah, possibly so.
And they're wanderers, so they might tie things together. So we might see 2 worlds through their eyes,
Right.
which is a nice way to
Right.
engage with the culture.
So, but at the same time, I think that, I don't know. Again, the trailers have presented them so persistently as that kind of frame, that this sort of intro thing, that it really makes me wonder how their story is going to connect with or even map onto. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But
and because we know the other ones from Tolkien's works have actions and have points and have purposes, we don't know these, so it would all be invented too. So I don't know how it would play out.
Yeah, exactly.
But they certainly featured them as much, been on posters, been in the trailers.
Yeah, exactly. No, and it was one of the things that I did learn at Comic-Con. I was talking with the actress who plays Nori.
Oh yeah.
And I told her that I was just really interested to see where the Harfoot story goes, because I had very little idea. And she was like, she says the trailers have not given you the vaguest hint. And he's like, it's not even scratched the surface.
And she didn't either give you?
No, she didn't.
On.
But she was saying that, like, basically she was telling me there is no way you could possibly guess
figure out what's
the storyline of the Harfoot based on what they've shown.
Well done, lady. That's very coy and
I was
very
like, okay,
engaging.
right, no.
That's beautiful, though. It looks like where I live.
Yeah.
All right, and then the next shot we get another drone.
Right, another drone shot of that's Galadriel and the elves, presumably.
The contrast of that.
Yes. Yeah. Look at how uniform they are in comparison, right? We've got the sort of the varieties emphasized by, like, the hair stuff, right? The plants in the hair, right? And then we get the
regimented.
Yeah. In a line, right? All wearing the same cloaks and everything, right? So that is interestingly suggestive. And this, of course, was transition. What's the flying creature?
An eagle.
It's an eagle?
I think so.
Yeah, probably. Interesting. Okay. That's fascinating. Because that does suggest that we're getting up towards, like, the north, where the eagles' eyries were in the first age, which are sunk beneath the ocean now, but presumably the eagles didn't sink with them, and so...
And is also a recognizable thing to, like, the casual fan to be like, wait, I know them.
Right. Eagles, mountains,
yeah, eagles.
We saw that.
They saved Gandalf.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and then we go back to Galadriel climbing, but we don't get a climbing scene. Instead, we cut to her looking, which is going to transition into her talking with Elrond, right? So that's a little bit of trailer magic where it looks almost as if she's looking at Elrond.
Yeah, I do feel like there needs to be a PSA about trailer cutting. I think we've talked about it before, though, of just what we're seeing on the trailer is most definitely not what we're going to see in the show. So they're trying to make us think that we're looking at this thing that Galadriel's looking at, but that's probably not what she's looking at in that moment. They just took that shot to tie this together and get the pacing to be really exciting. Yeah,
exactly. The driving the sword in the ground is an interesting sort of symbol. You know, it's a kind of a, like, here I stand symbol as well. So it's like a firm and aggressive without being, well, not aggressive. Firm and, I don't know, like militant without being, aggressive. Exactly. Okay, and then we get Elrond looking concerned, right? And this shot made the whole trailer. This is incredible. I absolutely think that this is a flashback of the Kinslaying, or like a nightmare sequence of the Kinslaying.
Tell me, I mean, like, I don't know enough about the lore, but I've heard 3 or 4 different things about this. So what makes you think this is from that?
Dead elves in the harbor.
Yeah.
So
definitely floating.
Yeah. This looks like an underwater shot looking up at Alqualande, which was the city of the Teleri in Valinor, with slain elves from the Kinslaying, sinking down into the water. We've got, of course, the one in the foreground, which looks like a woman with a spear through her, right? So this is when, of course, Feanor and the Noldor attack the harbors and steal their ships. The Teleri try to fight them off and are massacred. So it looks like an underwater scene. The red, the harbor, running red with blood. I say potentially sort of nightmare sequence because that's a lot of blood to make an entire harbor
Well, and I
that red.
assume this is
But
a flashback of some kind.
yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
there could also be filters on it of her own memories of it. So, this is not necessarily like a historical photo of what happened.
Right.
It's what she remembers.
Exactly. This is kind of the image that's imprinted on her brain, which I think that works.
The trauma is like...
Yeah. Yeah.
It also looks like a hellscape, you know? So,
Yes.
again, as a casual viewer, you're going to see this and be like, oh, dang.
Right. Right. Which I think is one of the things that I have from the beginning doubted, frankly, whether they would be able to capture is the sort of the magnitude, like the mythic magnitude of the Silmarillion stuff, of the first age behind it, right? What the to not just the kinslaying is not just like, oh, and a bunch of people died and it was very sad, right?
It was like
but
decimation.
I mean, but like the like metaphysical impact of that, like the curse of the Noldor comes from it, the way that the kinslaying follows them around, you know, like spiritually, not just emotionally, you know, and not just politically, both of those too, right? But spiritually, again, the Valar, you know, curse, you know, there is, you know, the doom of the Noldor as a result of this, and it looms much larger. I mean, it was a horrible event in real time, right? But after the fact, it just becomes this mythic, iconic, deeply significant spiritual thing that overlays the entire story of the Noldor through the rest of the First Age. And are they going to be able to capture, like, evoke that? You know,
because we don't know what that feels like. So how would you project that and get that depth across an eternal race?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So
a challenge.
When I saw this, I was like,
ooh,
whoa, that is really powerful.
And
really
framed
powerful.
by Galadriel, because she's right before and right after this,
Yeah.
right? You have not seen what I've seen, and the
Well,
delivery.
it cuts from him saying like that he's seen, you know, bad stuff too, and then we get this, and her saying, no.
Yeah, and her delivery is like when you've done something wrong and your parent is totally pissed at you. No, it is like, oh, I'm so angry, but I can't. You know, she's almost shaking.
Yes. Yeah,
Anger
the
with
intensity.
fear with the intensity.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the way that this transitions to her really suggests like we're seeing this flash of her mind, right, of her own inner thoughts.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that's this. So the two things that have really encouraged me most about like just these people's chops as cinematographers and storytellers to really be able to capture these big picture, deep, emotional, like high. This is one that really fills me with hope that maybe they could actually even pull that off. And the second one is the one I talked about it last week, the darkening of the trees and the Morgoth shot.
Yeah.
Right? Oh man.
Yeah.
Like that's as I was discussing last week, again, it's hard to show that on screen without making it smaller.
Because it's also hard to explain that with words.
Yes.
You know, like we don't have that kind of intensity in our lives from day to day. So, you know, with a book and thousands of pages, you have some time to kind of envision what that might feel like. But to be able to do that visually is a real challenge.
Right.
And again, this is just a teaser trailer. We won't know until we see the whole show, but this is really engaging and gives you a little bit of hope that they get it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a beautiful shot.
Right, the Numenor shot. Still not sure which city this is. Probably Armenos, the capital, but as I don't know how many different locations on Numenor they're going to be able to have time to really introduce us to.
I imagine they're going to combine things too. So.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, it's something people have said like, but the faithful need to be like, Elendil's city of, and over in Andunia and whatever. Yeah, but how much time are they going to have to be able to be like, no, let's, because I mean, this is going to be one location of many.
And again, these are the decisions you have to make. Like, I would love to see all the cities and spend hours in each of them. But do you want 10 cities poorly done, or do you want 3 cities really well done?
Right, exactly. And do you want 2 carefully distinguished and differentiated Numenorean cities, or would you rather have more Khazad-dûm? Like that. Right. That's, I think. So yeah,
getting both.
If they were to have one Numenorean primary setting, to just take the, Armenelos, or whatever they decide to choose as the core city of Numenor, and use that as the main Numenorean sort of backdrop and center, and then focus their time on not differentiating locations within Numenor, but differentiating, the people and the storylines, all happening kind of generally within this one Numenorean backdrop. I don't think that'd be the worst thing.
No, because that's going to engage you more in a story. You know, like, I'll miss the factual thing. However,
right.
I'm going to pay attention to it a lot more.
Yeah. And this is The Past is Dead, right?
Yeah.
And that's Elendil speaking. It's funny. This is, for me, one of the strangest. That I don't pay attention to actors. Like, whenever we're talking about things, I'm always like, I don't know who anybody is, whatever.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah, but you've met them now.
It's completely transformed.
I bet.
Like, I remember some people saying, like, who's the guy who says, the past is dead? I'm like, well, obviously it's Elendil. Like, that's Lloyd. Like, and I think of them like I think of them on a first name basis now. Like, when I see them, I don't think of their characters first. I think of them first.
Sometimes that's like an absolute strength. Sometimes that's also a real problem. So good luck moving into this, trying to separate the two.
Exactly. Yeah. But
It's
that's
nice
definitely Elendil.
It's nice when you can kind of suspend that a bit and just enjoy the performance, but you are going to consistently remember the jokes that he cracked at lunch. Or cracked at lunch.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so as far as the Elendil content here, though, I think this is, to me, a really interesting glimpse. I think this might be the biggest glimpse we've had into the whole fall of Numenor question, actually. Because if Elendil is saying the past is dead, that suggests Numenor is already in decline, right? And he's upset about it. And that's how I take this, right?
Yeah.
I take this not as him rejecting the past. I take this as him saying, we're not in the past anymore. Like, Numenor has been great. Numenor has but it does not mean that anymore. And that perhaps there are others in Numenor sort of in denial about that, and he's not in denial about that. That's
do
how
you
I'm
think there
taking
could be any optimism where he's like, the past is dead, we're starting anew? Or is it, oh, no.
I don't see that in this shot. And I don't know. Like, I don't know how much optimism to expect from Elendil, honestly. Because he's going to be, even in the books, even afterwards, like what we know of Elendil and the other Numenoreans in the generations afterwards, is thinking of themselves as exiles. The Elendil character, not in The Lord of the Rings, because we don't get almost anything of him as a character in The Lord of the Rings, but what we get from him in other things, like the Notion Club papers and stuff, in the Numenorean time travel stories that Tolkien was writing and stuff. Elendil is like weeping, like he is inconsolate for the loss of Numenor.
Okay.
And feels that he personally has been exiled. Like, he's in a really interesting position because on the one hand he has been like the one keeping, the candle lit for the Valar and the elves, and he's been trying to stay true while the whole world has crumbled around him. So in one sense he's like, the one righteous man in the fallen city, right? But at the same time, and he survives, which would seem to be, he's delivered from the downfall and is not destroyed in the downfall with everybody else. And so you would think that could lead him to be like, we have been chosen or rewarded, even, right? Like, see, we are the righteous who have been saved, and now let us now go forward and reestablish old Numenor.
I don't get that vibe.
No. And
But
nor
I
is,
also don't get like completely mournful either. He seems angry more than anything else. So it might be really interesting to see what his arc is like here.
Exactly. But if he starts off angry, that works for me. As far as like but again, it suggests that, because again, there's one of the questions with the time compression, like, how fallen is Numenor already at the beginning?
I'm picturing,
and how sudden is its fall?
What is it, 7 stages of grief? Like, I wonder if they've made a 7 stages of grief for him to fit into their compressed timeline.
Right, I wonder. But certainly his reaction to Numenor is going to be one of our primary cues as viewers about,
where are we?
Where are we and how does that work? I don't know if this transition is meant to suggest or merely to mislead that these are Numenorean cavalry.
It is. I mean, I want to do a side-by-side comparison with the Peter Jackson Rohirrim charge, because that is shot for shot.
Yeah,
it's got.
This looks very much like it. Yeah,
it's got a colder filter on it, but that's about it.
With, of course, Galadriel leading the charge there. We've got.
But then we see something we haven't seen before. The
The ship.
The ship.
Multiple ships. So is this like an armada headed towards Middle-earth? Is this...
And the design of the ship is just beautiful.
It really is. Arondir doing we can't tell what. What's Durin saying there?
I don't remember what he's saying, but he's holding the throw.
Potentially. Yeah, and then of course we get the Meteor Man again. Concerning which, who knows. But yes, like people talking about how this looks like an eye, right? I will still eat something unpleasant if he turns out to be Sauron.
Oh, I don't.
I mean,
yeah, I agree with what you said last week. We have not seen Sauron
we have not
yet,
seen Sauron.
And they're going to do that on purpose to build up.
Yeah,
but I think any kind of reference to Sauron or to the visuals that we're familiar with from concept art or Peter Jackson or anything else, like if you want to see the Eye of Sauron in that, yep, that's okay. I don't mind that reference.
Okay, I'm going to take that down. Where did my other trailer go?
Whew. That was a whirlwind tour of the teaser trailer, but we had to at least touch base on it.
Definitely.
Again, we're not doing like reaction stuff. It's not like as immediately as the drops we're going to talk about the trailer, but want to kind of unpack it a little bit. But then after the teaser, we got this 3-minute hunk of joy to dig into.
Okay. There's the other one. Found it. Okay. Shall we watch it through once?
Sure. Do you want to check comments or questions or anything?
Oh yeah, so
like,
looking
I haven't
at
done
comments.
Any of that.
Okay, all right.
I think I was messing up because I was. Corey, you might want to double check you're not on Wi-Fi.
Yeah, or to get on it. Okay, hang on a second. Let me just double check because I know we've been having some internet issues here. Let's just check the network here, and
you are connected on Wi-Fi.
Let's see. Okay, we'll see if that gets any better. Who knows?
We'll give it a try.
We'll give it a try. Okay. But as I say, one way or the other, apologies for those of you watching live and getting an uneven thing, but we'll upload a clean version.
We're learning.
Yeah, exactly.
But look at all this shiny kit.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. It'll be nice. It'll be nice. When we upload it, it'll be nice. Okay. Anyway, so let's look at yes, Meow. I love how Galadriel was the only white horse in that line. Yeah.
And filmically, easy to identify her, but also symbolically, I feel like that's quite a focal point for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so the Witch King was asking, have we talked about how the hand holding the dark blade when it reforges looked like Bronwyn's and not Theo's? They were edited to misdirect that it was Theo's. No, I'm pretty sure it's Theo, actually.
I thought it was Theo.
I thought we saw his face.
Oh, I don't remember now.
I think I'm like 98% sure it's Theo holding the black sword.
I certainly haven't.
In fact, I'm going to go up to 100% because I think that I recall people talking with the actor about, like, how challenging it was to be, like, doing a scene holding a sword that isn't there, basically.
Right.
And, so I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
That's definitely what we've heard more about, and I think I agree with New Beta that we can see that as we can see that as the Witch King.
Pencil him in at least as a Nazgul.
I'm going to pencil him in.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
I don't need to bet money on it yet.
I'm not. I don't like betting money on predictions like this because that's a fool's game. But all right. Well, let's watch the.
All right, so we're doing it
through
from
the beginning. Okay, yeah, let's do it through once. We'll kind of talk over it a little bit, and then
I think you've all seen it by this point.
Yeah, hopefully you guys have all seen it
17,000 times.
Exactly. So let's see here.
There was a time.
Okay, so the Numenorean approach again.
Exciting.
All right, we've got Galadriel looking up. Then we've got Finrod, I believe, moving up towards that still shot we got there with the two trees, and presumably Tyrion. Okay, the light of the trees.
The trees to be that big.
Yeah.
Music.
Okay, there's that elf shot again.
There's the eagles.
The eagle.
Elves
There's
have
Linden.
farms to
Seen
protect.
Linden.
Dwarfs their minds.
Khazad-dûm. And once again, we're getting the
Then
Hobbit
their
frame.
Fields of
Mhm.
grain.
Talking us into
But
it.
we Harfoots have each
Interested to, except loved that transition.
Mm.
We're safe.
You have fought
Again,
long enough,
referencing
Galadriel.
Yeah, a little more of that
Put
shot.
up your sword.
The enemy is still out there. The question now is where?
It is over.
Oh man.
You have not seen what I've seen.
I have seen my share.
You have not seen
The red scene with the dust.
what I have seen.
I think that's got to be. Well. Yeah. Well, okay, I'll come back.
Darkness will march
Sales.
over the
Sales
face of the
account.
earth.
So glad to get some go lad.
It will be the
This
end,
trailer.
not just of our people, but all
Tarmiriel and the.
peoples.
Tying together and floating.
Yes.
I am sorry, but their time has come.
The past is with us all.
Okay.
The past is dead. We either move forward or
That
we
I think
die
was a
with it.
Sildar. There's Farazan.
Be the beginning of a
It
new
really is
era.
very similar to the 30-second teaser. We just get a little bit more for each thing.
Yes.
So story-wise, I don't think we get much revolutionary with this, but imagery, great. There's more things for us to look at.
Yeah. And still a lot of my least favorite design element, the Hobbit
the feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So let's. So many things, but as you say, like topically, actually, not many more things.
No, I don't. I mean, like, I remember when this first dropped, you were all at Comic-Con, and I was like,
Yeah.
did we learn anything new? 'Cause
Oh wait, hang on a second. I cut it short.
What? Oh, that's right.
I cut it short. We can't do that.
Can't do that. Hang on. There's a big reveal here.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal.
Oh wait, we didn't get it.
What?
We didn't get it in this cut.
Do you guys remember what's at the end of this?
Oh, yeah, the Balrog shot.
There's a giant Balrog.
Yeah. And by the way, like we had all turned to each other and started talking at
And
the
then
end, and then
that
the
came
Balrog
out?
came out, and there was like the room erupted.
Did you punch somebody? I feel like
No,
that
like,
would have been enthusiasm. Like,
Half of us leapt to our feet. Actually, like it was this huge sensation at the end of the trailer.
what was
there.
the feeling like? Was it mostly reactions like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it," or "What the hell is that
It was
doing there?"
no way
Okay.
was the main reaction. Like both of like wonder and surprise
Yeah.
for sure. So might as well just briefly talk about the Balrog. So there's 5% chance that this is Durin's Bane
Okay.
that we're seeing, or at least Durin's Bane quad Durin's Bane.
Right.
That so keep in mind, for those of you who many of you will remember the time frame, but Durin's Bane does not come out and start terrorizing Khazad-dûm until the year 1980 of the Third Age. So we're millennia
Yeah.
prior to that. And there is a chance, like a small chance, that they're going to like combine those two stories, right? That
We
they're going to
know
compress that.
The origination of Balrogs, like, can
Yeah.
one be born?
Well, they don't need to be born though. So, yes. So the origin story of Balrogs, right, is that they are like the primary, like demon lieutenants of Morgoth, Sauron's old boss, right?
Right.
And so they were at large. They were like his brute squad,
Right.
basically in the first age and in all of the battles. And then after Morgoth is defeated at the end of the first age and chained up, many of the Balrogs are scattered and they
So
run
there's
away
no
and
reason
hide.
for us to think there's just one.
No. There's
Totally,
definitely multiple
yeah.
Balrogs.
Okay.
Definitely multiple Balrogs. But also, again, that's how the Balrog of Moria gets there, because he runs away and hides in Moria, like deep down, and then he's disturbed millennia later, basically. So I think it's where we're likeliest to get. So some people seem to be leaping to the conclusion, since we're seeing Balrog, we must be seeing the Balrog of Moria emerging. But first of all, there are other Balrogs, and secondly, that Balrog had a past career, right? And if we're getting flashbacks to the First Age, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't get a flashback to. I mean, I'm imagining, for instance, like a Galadriel battle scene flashback, or even remember the
Yeah.
here. So remember the shot from one of the earliest trailers of Finrod in combat, right? Finrod is in combat, and the camera shows him like turning and looking, right, in the middle of the battle, right? What I could see is the Balrog shot coming right after that.
Right after
He's
that.
fighting off orcs, and they're having a hard enough time fighting off orcs,
Yeah.
and then out of the shadows,
Yeah.
you know, of its own creation, emerges the Balrog and starts stomping on elves and destroying everybody.
So again, this is trailers. Like, it doesn't mean
Right.
that we're going to have a Balrog as a main player in Third Age.
No,
It
no.
means Second Age. Sorry.
Yeah.
It means that we're kind of flashbacks to this terror that happened. I also think this is a nice ploy by the creative team to again align it to something that the broader audience is going to know. If you
Right.
show a Balrog, everybody that saw Peter Jackson is going to be like, I know what that is too. So it's the same kind of thing that could draw somebody in.
Exactly, especially since it looks
Exactly the same.
identical,
Which I know
yeah.
is also John Howe in the concept
Yeah,
art, but you
yeah.
can't help but ignore it. Looks exactly like Peter Jackson's Balrog.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. As far as I see people talking about numbers of Balrogs, don't forget that varies too over the course of Tolkien's life. There were dozens of Balrogs in his early writings. He reduced the number over time as the Balrogs themselves became bigger deals. Like they became, their stature grew, and they become this almost like, you know, unstoppable force, right? But like in the early version of The Fall of Gondolin, you read the Fall of Gondolin book and the Book of Lost Tales version of that story, there's Balrogs like
All over.
and
herd
being
of
killed.
Balrogs.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. There is a herd of Balrogs, and Tuor kills like dozens of them
Yeah.
in the battle. Now, again, he changed the concept of the Balrogs after that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like you know, the
As their
small number of
importance grew.
Balrogs. Yeah, exactly. But still, they were more than one, and all of them were out there,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in the battles. And so, yes, I could easily see that being sort of tied in with this, with the kind of flashbacks,
Mm-hmm.
and put in there as you know,
A hook. Yeah.
in the trailer. Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
right. Now people are trying to decide what the proper collective noun of Balrog. This was
Probably not a herd.
no,
They're,
probably not a herd.
thinking collective beings.
Yeah. A wildfire of Balrogs works. An eruption of Balrogs, Phil. I think that's
pretty good.
That is pretty good. That is pretty good. Yeah. Anyway, I don't think it. Yeah, we'll see. And again, I have the same rate when people are like, how can they show that Balrog because it looks so identical to the films? And
Why
I'm just,
can't they?
I don't know.
Yeah, of course they can.
And I still keep coming back to
Yeah.
this, like, why are people so worried about what they can and can't do? They did do it, so
Yeah.
obviously they can do it.
They can do anything.
Like,
You
I'm
don't want
sure
them to, but-
that the fans watching this are not the first people to notice that it's very similar to the old Balrog, and so doubtless someone, you know, either in the estate or at Middle Earth Enterprises or Warner Brothers or somewhere, right, Weta, made this observation, and they worked that out. So, you know, what the terms are, how that works, I don't know, but I don't even find that interesting, actually.
Well, and I do in terms of like existing in the world. I mean, the
Right.
thing we keep hearing about is they want it to be like in tone with Tolkien, and everyone that has adapted. Well, not everyone. We've seen some pretty terrible Tolkien art,
Right.
but everyone that has adapted in recent memory and has kind of created the world of Tolkien in the generic public psyche has gone off the illustrations that have come before. So
Right.
it absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, if you tell me what a Balrog looks like from an image John Howe drew in the 80s, that
Yeah.
would carry through. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think that association is a problem.
Right.
Of course they
exactly.
can do that. It makes sense to tie into things that have come before. Otherwise, I would look at it and be like, what's that purple thing? That's not a Balrog.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It would be
Exactly.
jarring if it wasn't similar.
Exactly. Anyway, okay, so we start with the approach to Numenor, which we've seen. Let's see. The approach to Tyrion. I remember, by the way, people looking at this still when we got this.
Yeah.
The frame that we got isn't on here. People saying, that's obviously not a live action shot. That's like some kind of really, really buffed up concept art or something like that. And the Amazon people insisting at the time, like, no, that's just a frame. It's a frame of the actual show. There's been this interesting fight, you know, of like people who are like, oh, the effects are terrible, and other people being like, well, that's like too good to be real, so it's
Yeah.
probably not, real.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with some of the stuff that came out with the Super Bowl trailer, that it did look a little unfinished, because it was a little unfinished.
Right.
We weren't quite there. But yeah, there seems to be this fight that, and also there's this discussion of, oh, that can't be real. It looks so CG. Is that a problem? Like, it's okay that we use technology to make fantasy stories, because Balrogs don't actually exist in real life.
Right,
Like,
right, and they
tech
are
can be
using a lot of
helpful.
practical effects.
Yeah.
And again,
and when you can't tell that line between practical effect and CG, that's a really well done job in my mind.
and that's where I've had a hard time taking anybody criticizing the CG seriously
Yeah.
ever since the title trailer was dropped.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "Oh, the CG is so bad," and
And
it
then
turns
they
out it was
showed
all
you
practical
wood,
events.
yeah.
It was all practical effects. There was no CG whatsoever, and so I'm like, okay, whatever. Again, I have a hard time taking anybody seriously.
I also
who
feel like it's
complains
just
about that.
almost low hanging fruit. Like, it's an easy thing for people to jump on that ship and say that they hate. The
Yeah.
CG is like, well, that doesn't say anything. That doesn't
Right.
really tell me anything about the project at hand.
Right, exactly.
Those trees are so much bigger than they were in my imagination.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they have to light up a
Yeah.
continent.
Right.
Basically. Yeah. By the way, so one of the
When
ways
you
in
say
which
it like that.
one of the ways in which Tolkien conceptualized this, because he asked himself this question, right? How could two trees light up a whole continent? That would either they have to be like thousands of feet tall, and so what he described was actually a dome, like a solid dome sky
Okay.
over Valinor, which then itself, so like the sky, like reflects and kind of brings in the light from the trees. So
Okay.
the trees are sort of shining up to the dome, and then the dome distributes the light over the land.
I'm curious about this dome.
It's pretty curious. I don't know that
Yeah,
we'll see
like,
that.
what do you
I don't know that
mean?
we'll see that.
Yeah.
But again, this is when this is the kind of thing Tolkien did when he was in like world building mode.
Right.
Like, how does this work?
Yeah. I need to figure this out.
Yeah,
I'm picturing like a fiberglass dome, which probably didn't exist in Middle
Yeah.
Earth.
You know, in the early days, he was writing mythology.
Yeah.
Right. So he was like, oh yes, there are like two glowing magical trees, and the whole world is shaped like a Viking longboat. Like
Right.
that was fine.
Yeah.
Like, it was all about the mythic concepts.
But then you need actual logistics to make this function.
After the Lord of the Rings, that's how he was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
He was thinking in terms of logistic. That's why we get all the mathematical tables about elvish aging rates and generations and
Love
stuff
that.
like
When
that.
they have to actually put rules into their
Yeah,
imagination.
yeah. No, that's just what he was doing. Okay, anyway, so we get the trees. I'm still not 100% sure what we're looking at here. Or where
I'm
we're
just
looking.
making the gasp
exactly.
at that shot. Just the zoom in with the clouds is just so dramatic.
It's really beautiful.
Frames it really well.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know who this is on horseback. Is this the same group of cavalry that we were looking at in
Previous shot over the fields.
in the previous
Could
shot
be.
of the fields? I don't know.
It is just definitely showing us a different landscape too. So
Yeah.
it's probably just showing us also the different worlds and the different visuals.
Yeah.
We get like the warm wheat, the cold snow, the green grass,
Right.
the gray rock, yellow trees.
The yellow trees, right? Now it's
Autumnal.
autumn, which is interesting, by the way. I haven't really talked about that. The persistent autumnal tones that have been associated with Linden, which is, on the one hand, very logical, right? These are the high elves, and the fading time has begun, right? It's after the first age. They're not yet to the fading time. We're still well away from the dominion of men, which is going to come at the end of the third. Like, by the time we get to the third age, right? Galadriel is looking towards retirement. Like
Right.
it's the time of the elves is ending, and everybody knows it, especially the elves. At the end of the third age, we're not there yet. The time of the elves isn't ending, but the period of ending has begun.
That's
Right.
nice having that autumnal association with it.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
everything's still really warm and friendly and welcoming.
Right. Right.
But it is kind of taking that turn.
But yeah, from the beginning, we've been seeing that, and there's green still, right? We can I think we can still see green in other places, but yeah, that sense of, because I do believe that thematically, this is going to be an important element of the elf stories, is that it's not just, we know that the fall of Numenor is all about the wrestling with mortality, right? Well, not all about, but largely about. Very
Definitely a
heavily
thematic,
involved.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A very important
And
element.
the showrunner said that, didn't they?
Exactly. But the other thing that they said, which I thought was brilliant, is that the elves are struggling with the same thing.
Right.
Because their time is ending as well, and they don't know what's coming. And they do not have an indefinite amount of time in Middle-earth. What are they going to accomplish now as the years under the sun are wearing and change is coming? And that, of course, is exactly what we see in the Elvish Rings of Power. What the Elvish Rings have the power to do is to stop change from happening, right? I mean, it's the motivation, apparently, the motivation behind the Elvish Rings in the first place is like, can we hit the pause button? Can we do something to work against this trend towards change and decay that we see in Middle-earth and which grieves the elves, right? So again,
as previously immortal beings,
Right.
having the ability to tap into a pause button, you can absolutely
well,
absorb
yeah,
that.
and for beings which are going to, now again, they're not dying, right? They're not leaving the world, but their bodies are aging and the world is changing around them, right? And that's the thing that grieves them, right? So yeah, it's a very different kind of mortality question than the Numenoreans are facing and than the humans are facing. But it still is, I agree with JD and Patrick, it's still fundamentally a mortality question. So again, like that's another thing that the autumnal thing makes me like. They're aware of the fact that like it's no longer just an endless summer in Middle-earth.
And makes them hugely relatable. I mean, what human isn't aware of their own mortality and the fear of that? So being able to tap into, because I couldn't tap into an immortal being otherwise.
Right.
If they're also scared of death, okay, entry point.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, change and
recovering from trauma from what they just lived through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So no, I think
all that from Autumn Leaves, people.
Exactly. There we go. Autumn Leaves. And then we get Khazad
I
Dûm.
love the shot. It's so beautiful. And the green
The
hanging
green.
down.
Yes. Yes.
Well, it's just so different from what we saw in Peter Jackson. It's just thriving and living and warm, and you can see it as homey. And
yes, this shot of, I think of that wonderful line from Sam in the books when he's marveling at Moria around them and all of the halls and everything that have been cut and mostly in hard rock too. He said, "What did they do it all for? They didn't live in these darksome holes, surely, right?" And Gimli, this is what inspires Gimli's song, and Gimli jumps in, needless to say, and is like, "These are not holes, right? This is the realm and city of the Dwerodelf," and a glimpse of that, right? This glimpse that we get, and I'm hoping to see so much more in the show of what a dwarf culture at its peak was and what it means.
Because it hasn't had the time that it deserves. It's much more sophisticated than I think most of the adaptations have portrayed it as.
Yes, absolutely.
And we do get little glimpses of that in this, and focuses on the dwarves that are our main players, and the singing and the bit of mithril that he's holding.
Yeah, exactly. As Bjarnasonar says, all we ever really see in Tolkien's main works are the ruins of dwarf halls. Yeah, exactly. The green, I think, is, first of all, like, it was, like, slightly funny. The whole, like, dwarves don't eat vegetables jokes in the Hobbit films,
and then you see this reflected light, and, like, look how they did that.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But that's how you make jokes. It's not how you actually do serious world building of a society. And so showing like, they're probably going to need oxygen, maybe, vegetables, fruits, so that there would be, growth and enough light to grow things.
And timber, theoretically we could have forests down there.
Yes, they would have need of wood. So absolutely. So, loving this. And then men, oh my goodness. So I am excited. By the way, this is one of the first times that we've seen, I know we get it in the Bronwyn and Arondir story, but a glimpse of non-Numenorean humans in Middle-earth. Like that's, I've been saying from the beginning, it's one of the things that I'm really interested to see. Fun to see an example of them, by the way. I wonder what these mountains are. If we're to presume from this cut, if like, I don't know if any of those out there are the same humans that we're seeing. Like basically, yeah, it looks like the Harfoots are living in the same region as this. In which case, like, what are those mountains exactly? I'm still trying to geographically locate the
Where are
Harfoots,
we?
which I think are east, but how far east, I don't know.
And what's on the ridge up there?
I think isn't that the moose antler dudes?
Is it moose antler dudes?
I think it's moose
Okay.
antler dudes.
Making sure it wasn't Ents.
No, I don't think so. No,
I
see,
think
like
that's
it's the moose
dudes.
antlers.
So
yeah.
we still don't know what they do because.
No idea about the moose
I mean, I assume
antlers.
she's on lookout. She's some sort of a
Right.
warning. There's something on the horizon.
Yeah. The carefree celebrations.
Lovely party scene. We're safe.
Yeah. And then the meteor hits.
Then we get Tolkien's name. So I think that's really interesting too in terms of pacing with the trailer. That
Yeah.
we have all this setup. We see all the different worlds. And then we're safe here. From the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. Boom, we're not safe. Here's the threatening
Right.
conflict.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, and then we get the exchange there. This is Galadriel and the elves forcing their way through the windstorm in the north as they're getting closer into the icy depths of wherever they're headed.
Still a struggle.
I'm still hoping for Utumno, basically, which is so Utumno was when Morgoth first set up shop in the north back at the very beginning of the Silmarillion. Utumno was his very first dwelling place, and then he got besieged and captured there, basically, and he had another little fortress on the outskirts of where he was, which when he escapes and comes back, that's where he sets up shop, Angband, which becomes Thangorodrim, the big, his headquarters for the rest of the Silmarillion, for the rest of the First Age. But Utumno, his like original fortress, was way in the very, very far north, and it was like never returned to in the story.
This is so nice having like sitting next to you because when you say something like that, I don't know what that means. You're actually like filling me in, whereas on a screen
I can
just
get
sit
the
there
cue a little
quietly.
bit
I'm
more.
like,
Yeah,
what?
exactly. Right. I can tell from your body language
I'm like,
what I need to do
what
to
is
explain
this?
Utumno.
Yeah.
So
Appreciate that.
anyway, so I that would be really neat. So there are a couple of reasons. It obviously can't be the Angband, which was the fortress of Morgoth in the First Age, because that sank into that was like ground zero of that whole part of the continent sinking into the sea at the end of the First Age. But Utumno could conceivably be far enough away and far enough north that it could.
And again, if you don't know this
there.
stuff, you're looking at this and saying they're not in the warm wheat fields or the safe, valleys. They are somewhere you don't want to be. So they must be seeking something dangerous out.
Right.
So like that's enough of a cue to be like, ooh,
Yeah.
there is evil out there still. Look.
We have Druid's Fire has an excellent question for you. Can you speak to why a production would use based on the works of versus inspired by or
there's
whatever
so
else?
many different ways to this. I'll attempt to talk around it. So like when you see a film and you see like inspired by true events based on a real story, those are all different levels of adaptation fidelity, so to speak.
Right.
So if it says like based on true events, that is a real slight, like maybe they used 4 or 5 of the names and like 2 plot points, but they're going to make up their entire thing. So Disney's really famous for this. Pocahontas is based on true events. Is it?
Right.
So there's a few things there. So based on the works, or what were the actual works based on the works?
Based on the works of J.R.R. Tolkien.
Based on the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, we don't have text to go off of. So you can't say, based on the story or the text. It's the works of Tolkien. I also like that they use the word works because we are pulling from things, unpublished tales,
multiple
appendices,
works, yeah.
and maybe not specifics because we don't have the rights to everything, but we're certainly drawing on the knowledge, or the showrunners are drawing on the knowledge of those different things. So we don't have chapter 1 is what happened, chapter 2 is what happened in the Second Age. So being able to draw on the works, you get that kind of name recognition, but it also gives you a whole lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
So I think it sets it in that world. It gives you that kind of clock moment that if I am just a casual fan, I'll be like, oh yeah, Tolkien, he's a big deal. I know he's fantasy. Cool.
And as you say, there's no single text that's behind. I mean, I know like the appendices. Like I get that. That's the right. But again, it's not like if you're following along at home, you're not going to be able to page along through a particular story and they're signaling that.
Right.
basically.
I mean, we don't have those characters with specific dialogue. We don't have moments, you know, that I could print up and put on a poster and a calendar of the Second Age. Like, that doesn't exist like we do with the narrative of the Third Age. So, yeah, I mean, basically that's just saying that we're grounding this in something that you're going to recognize and to show you that we're respecting where it came from, but it's flexible.
Yeah. Cool.
But thank you for asking. There's a lot. I mean, like, when you see that, inspired by, based on, there's so
Is there
much
a difference between
flexibility.
inspired by and based on, or is that just
Officially, no.
Yeah.
Unofficially, inspired by is the loosest.
it's the loosest?
Yeah. So if you
Okay.
see inspired by
So
true
based on
events,
is stronger, more concrete.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, when you see that, I think in conversation, if I was choosing based on, it would be a little bit more concrete.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what the strongest would be. Inspired by true events, based on, from the works of.
From the works of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, if you saw a Shakespearean adaptation where every single word, it would be Shakespeare's works. You know, they would like accredit it word for word. So we don't have that with this.
Right. Though, of course, many is the time I've seen, like the author, especially a public domain author, right, cited in the title of a film, which is extraordinarily loosely based.
Louisa May Alcott's Little Women.
Yeah.
That's a bad example because the last one was pretty good. But, you know, it's things like that where it is in the title and you're like,
Yeah.
And that would be trying to hitch their wagon to a winning horse, but not actually respecting the horse.
Right.
Look at the lens flare on that.
Yeah.
So they're actually putting some production moment into that shot.
Love that.
That's cool.
Man, so this is almost certainly Numenor. I say almost certainly because I'm like, there's like just a chance that this might be like a Valinorian city or something in one of the, but I think it's Numenor, a kind of establishing shot for a place we're going to get to know much better. And I think this city looks too big to be. This is why I think there's going to probably be one central Numenorean city. That's just a guess, but there seems to be something else going on over here on the far right. I don't know if those are just trees, but I don't know what's happening over there. But
it's showing you the world continues and it's a bit more wild outside of the city, maybe.
Yeah. I would assume that this sort of river that's going around the city is like what that, the little channel with the faces on it that we saw at the beginning, where it kind of opens out into this, which gives this sense of like the protected harbor, right? I think the protected safe harbor. Yeah, slightly hidden, not quite like secret, but sort of something like that. Okay, right, then Elrond and Galadriel.
This is where he's like, put down your sword.
Yes.
And then look at her intensity.
Yeah,
Now,
so...
you talked to her for a while, didn't you?
I did, yeah. And she was talking very openly about, like, it was clearly from the, like, initial concept, like, when she was cast, one of the first things that she learned about the character that she was going to be playing was the PTSD element of it, as sort of like, sort of like the beginning frame of her character. So that was a really important item. I'm torn thinking about the conversation we were having about thinking about the conversation that we have been having about the red scene, the probable kinslaying underwater scene, and to what extent this is memory, and to what extent it's nightmare sequence. It makes me wonder about this sequence as well. Do
you think they're the same event?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Mostly because this is looking all very like volcanic ash-esque, right? Like the dust that's caked on her looks like, I mean, I know it's not particularly deep analysis to be like, no. The Kinslaying was wet, and this scene is dry.
I mean, there was a massive fire, it looked like, above
Right.
the Kinslaying.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You know, who knows
No.
where she was standing. but-
Exactly. So it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible that it's connected. But no, like the all of the imagery that's associated in the story with the Kinslaying is all about the blood in the water.
Right.
It's like, because it's the harbor, it's the ships that they're stealing the ships, and there is, there can be fire, right?
Yeah.
Things are burned, but
this does look very volcanic.
Yes,
And that's a very
exactly.
different kind of, again, casual viewer. You're going to think Mount Doom, you're going to think a terrible, horrible
Yes.
volcano, which could be quite impactful and signify some bad guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I am wondering instead. I that's why I think that these are separate incidents.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Kinslaying is this sort of flash memory, which I do not think they're going to depict, because they would have to have full Silmarillion rights for that. I don't think they're going to be depicting that story.
But if it's a traumatic flashback.
A traumatic flashback to the aftermath of that would definitely
do
be
that.
I could see being greenlit.
Yeah.
A full retelling, a full
Yeah.
depiction of the story of the Kinslaying, I can't see
And that
without
does-
full rights to the Silmarillion.
And that does still make sense to what the showrunners were talking about, of like, we don't have to tell you how we got from A to B, but we can show you, what was on that side of the street. Like,
Right, and what's on the other side of the street.
And how we got there.
Exactly. That's what I see. That underwater shot looks like the other side of the street from the Kinslaying,
Right.
basically.
Okay.
This looks to me different.
Yeah.
This looks to me different, and to be connected perhaps to one of the battles, like one of those battles that Finrod was in, perhaps. Is there, I don't know what, is there a dragon involved? I mean, there were Glaurung involved. Could this have been, or is this maybe this scene is like after the Balrog comes through. That image that we got of her eye opening, right, caked in dust.
Yeah. Could she be battling a Balrog?
Or just have been in the area when the Balrog showed up
Yeah.
and wrecked the place, basically.
I just had a little giddy fangirl moment, though, of like Galadriel fighting
Galadriel
a Balrog.
fighting a
Oh my
Balrog,
God.
yeah, I know, right? I mean, I don't know.
Wow.
But, yeah. So, so I don't know. But this looks like everything about this image of her standing, look at her reeling,
And
right?
everything's spinning around her. I mean, it just looks volcanic, right? It looks
Yeah.
like there's an active fire and wind all happening.
This looks to me like Galadriel being the survivor of
Yeah.
a disaster.
Yeah.
Like, she is knocked out by something that kills most or many, and then she wakes up and we see her
Everybody's dead around
standing
her.
almost, completely alone, caked in dust, in this red, glow, which looks like blood, juxtaposed into the context of her talking about her trauma and what she's seen and what she's experienced. So yeah, I think that what we're going to be seeing is like even something like survivor guilt Galadriel as well.
And we've seen that other trailer too, where she starts with the helmet going onto the
Yes.
pile of helmets.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense when you tie it in with this idea.
Yeah,
Survivor guilt, laying a helmet on a
Yeah.
pile of helmets.
yeah. Oh, that's right. That's why this
That-
is not the Balrog. This is the other trailer.
Yeah.
But anyway, so many trailers.
I know, there's so many
have been
things.
released. Yeah.
Go
Okay.
back a tiny bit to that boat, because that 100% looked like Aragorn's crown to me from Return of the
Oh,
King.
yeah. It's
That's got to be on purpose, right?
it is.
Okay.
Yeah, this would be the kind of iconography that they are recalling in the Gondorian.
Laying the groundwork
stuff.
for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I had not processed that, but I think when you point that out,
Like,
it
immediately
feels
I was
like that was like
purposeful.
subconscious
right? Yeah.
on me. Yes, yeah, agreed. Yes, yeah. And then coming into, or we're led to believe now, coming into the Numenorean harbor here.
Legend begins. So really setting those foundations.
Yeah. Gil-galad and Elrond. Gil-galad having a bad feeling about this. That's orcs.
Are they orcs?
I'm looking at their headgear. They look like orcs.
Sorry, we're kind of far away from the screen.
We are. This dude here looks like one of the stills we've seen of orcs.
Well, and it certainly looks like a threatening group out at night.
Mm-hmm. Those look like various kinds of skulls on their heads.
Mm-hmm.
Could be wrong, but that's what it looks like. Yeah, I agree. Edith says the bottom right one looks definitely like an orc helmet. That's just what I'm thinking.
And that would match the one from the other trailer where Bronwyn's hiding and the orc comes in.
Yes. This is where we've begun the swirling motif, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which started with
That.
the sparks swirling around Galadriel, right? And then the rotation of the camera under the water there, right?
Moving. Straight shot.
Straight shot. Now we're rotating around the harbor.
Straight shot.
The camera's not turning, but they are, right? We've got this sort of arc of them coming around, then juxtaposed with the arc of the birds coming around.
Mm-hmm.
The turning of Galadriel's head towards the light, the
More
turning
spinning.
of Tarmiriel's head.
And still have the flutters. What is that, ash, you think?
No, that's
Those are the
petals.
The petals from the tree.
From the tree, yeah. Petals from the tree. Now, and applying what I've learned from you, Galadriel is looking back.
Again, this is trailer editing where they look at each other.
Yeah.
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 But how well does that work?
She starts off facing to the right, right, towards the future, and she turns,
she's looking into the
and then she
past.
turns back, and then Miriel is moving to the left, which is backwards motion, but then she looks back over her shoulder.
Look at you reading a film. But
Yeah?
I can see
Yeah?
that. I mean, again, we don't know if that's true or not, but the fact that you can put that meaning on it and you can look at those two races, know where they're going and where they're coming from,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah,
But also connects those two characters, which I really love that. So you're having them almost looking at each other,
Right.
which is such a
Yeah.
great device between shots to kind of tie those two together.
and of course setting up the shot in the later trailer when the two of them are facing each other across the table with the Palantir in the
Yep.
middle, right?
Yep.
And those are definitely the petals of the white tree. Some people have been wondering if the white tree is already like ailing and therefore shedding its petals. I'm not sure. I mean, I would think that the shedding of its petals would be
A regular
a
occurrence
regular
anyway,
occurrence under some circumstances. I don't know. But yeah, so we have the birds. Now we have the petals. Now we have the sparks. And what is presumably Meteor Man. Now we're in Khazad-dûm.
Right? Beautiful.
Look at all the
Wow,
green.
The green, yeah.
Look at all the green. Very
And the
striking.
sunlight's streaming in, so they clearly have a system to
Yes.
make that work.
Yes. Yeah. That's Halbrand, the other human dude.
Are you panicking because we've just realized there's another trailer for us to get through?
No, I know. We've talked about so few of the trailers
I
because so many
know.
have dropped in the last 3 weeks. I'm not panicking, but I'd like to see if we could get through one.
Absolutely.
Okay, back to no. Hang on. What's that?
Oh, it's a great shot of the Green Man armor.
It is. What's that guy? I'm trying to figure out what the guy in the background is meant to be doing. Is he drawing a knife? Is this a?
He looks
Are we having a
rough
problem? Yeah, he does look rough.
and potentially slave-like?
Maybe.
Or is he wearing some sort of an apron? Maybe he's forging.
Yeah, I think he's working, but he's not got a shirt on under it. Yeah, and Arendir is not paying a lick of attention to him behind him. Huh.
He's in shop, but we're not bothered.
Right.
There we got Galadriel on the white horse again.
Galadriel on the white horse. All right. Harfoot's hugging. Ooh, what was that? Oh, that's the storm at sea.
Yeah.
Very briefly. Okay, right. The raft or surviving. We're getting thrown off rafts, and there's the ship that's coming, and that's Isildur briefly, and the Numenoreans on the ship.
plainclothes.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear the conversation about that costume design because it just feels a little bit like a bathrobe to me.
This looks very like. Doesn't this whole scene look very Roman?
Yes.
Right, with the sandals, strappy sandals, and the tunics. Looks very Roman. Which
Super simple.
seems that works for me, Numenorean wise. Presumably Galadriel on her white horse. Who's the other one? Halbrand, maybe?
Maybe.
Don't know.
Lovely shot.
Close up of rump of horse. Elendil again, being angry. Talking to, I think, Isildur. Farazan talking to the crowd into it.
But, I mean, yeah, again, that looks quite Roman, too.
Yes, it really does.
And showing such differences between the worlds. You can tell their world building as creators was really strong. There's a lot of detail in each of these cultures.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. One of the things I keep hearing people criticizing is like, oh, so many of the costumes are so simple, like the bathrobe thing, right? We were joking about Celebrimbor in his PJs.
Yeah.
You know, there's the people complaining about the plain white outfits Galadriel and the other elves are wearing on that ship, right? The simple, but I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
In some ways, it seems to me to be an interesting response to people who talk about clean fantasy, like fantasy that looks too clean, right? It's also fantasy that looks too fancy.
Yeah.
Right? Like
they're not wearing
everyone
their
in
dress
a
robes
yeah,
every
like
day.
right, like everyone in a fantasy world is always going to be wearing elaborately gorgeous costumes.
Yeah.
Like that's not necessarily so.
Not realistic. I remember that with the third Harry Potter when they first said, bring your own clothes in and we'll incorporate them into the costumes. And that was like revolutionary to the kids. And they're like, well, you're at school. Of course you're going to have some elements.
Right.
Well, yeah, there's going to be some normalcy in even fantasy stories. I know that exists in the real world, but
Right.
I still think those look like bathrobes and were really simple for what I assume to be kind of uniforms. But yeah, I mean, they're going to have plainclothes days.
Right.
They're going to have dressed down normality.
Right.
Even elves.
And even elves. And I still think that there's some kind of more like deliberately almost ritual simplicity in the with the elves on the ship in particular. There's something kind of
that
ritual
feels
about that
very
moment.
ritual about it.
But who knows? But again, no context. This is Farazan doing right by the people, clearly.
I'm seeing so that Aaron is very Michelangelo. It does look like a very romantic painting.
Yeah. Who is this? Is this Halbrand? I think this is Halbrand.
Some good ruins he's running through.
It is. Old ruins. It's got to be in the south, right? Okay. So, and look at the horse's helmet. That's from the charge that we saw before. So we have Galadriel leading a force of... Okay, so if I'm getting any story out of this, the story that I'm getting is Galadriel coming with a relief force to presumably Harad, if that's Halbrand, which is where he's from. This whole thing has the air of like, I'm coming in spontaneously, right, to the assistance
to
here.
save a dramatic situation.
Yeah, here's what everybody wants to be the Oath of Fëanor, and it might well be.
We also see Galadriel covering a lot of ground.
Yes.
Because if she's far up north in the icy realms and then also down here, maybe those are also early on to kind of set where she's been and what she's working on while this stuff is happening in the world of men.
Right.
Oof, good move.
So then we get the combat sequences. Arondir and the Warg.
And again, this is really normal in trailers. Build up the pace. Let's have some battles thrown at the end.
Right.
Ramp
Galadriel
it
and
up.
the Troll. And then the drama of the Eye and the Meteor, and then the Hobbit feat, which I so strongly dislike. Curse you, brothers, Hildebrand. Okay. It's the brothers Hildebrand who first depicted
Big feet hobbits.
Bigfoot hobbits. Yeah. So, okay, let me hey, we still have a little time. Let's see if we maybe
we
I
still
can.
have half hour.
We still have half an hour.
And the other trailer, yeah. Let's dig into that
Okay.
one.
So tell me more about what you see about like the kind of pacing and what you see in story for
In that last one?
in that last one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that different from the teaser we had before. So it didn't actually release that much more of story, but it shows us so much more of each of those worlds. So all of this, if I'm looking at it from Amazon's perspective of like why they're releasing what they're releasing, I'm thinking of all of this as ramping up expectation. So we're starting with each of the, what do we have, 6 races? We spend a little bit of time with each of the 6 races in each of the 6 lands, getting to know them a little bit more, seeing a little bit more. They're dropping in these little, I don't want to call them Easter eggs because that feels cheesy, but you know what I mean? Like these little reference points that
Right.
folks that know Tolkien will recognize stuff. Folks that know Peter Jackson's adaptations will recognize stuff. Folks that just know fantasy will recognize what's good and bad because their color palettes are kind of lining up.
Right.
They're setting a lot of foundations, I hope, to just grab people. I also still think it's a little convoluted still. Like, I still think it's a little tough to see what the threat is and the
Right.
people I'm supposed to care about, and it's all still a little vague.
Right.
So if I knew nothing about any of this, I was coming in completely blind and just saw the trailer on Amazon, I'd be like, what is this about?
Right.
So I'm waiting
Right.
for the trailer that actually does give us some names and
Yeah. It's interesting because it's so hard for me to
remove that.
get my
Yeah.
head there. You know, like it's yeah. I really have no idea what this looks like to people who have no
No,
background
right.
whatsoever.
You can't do that. You're
Yeah.
not. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
not
that's
the
very-
key audience for that.
Yeah, that's
But I
very
mean, you
hard.
assume they've also done test audience screenings. Like they must have shown it to a few people and say, "What do you think?" You know, I should really show this to my dad and be like, "What do you think this is about?" And
Right.
get that kind of
Right.
perspective.
Yeah. Okay, so that last trailer was the one they released a couple days before Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, well, they're not going to show another trailer at Comic-Con, are they? And then we got it.
Shocking.
So, yeah.
And didn't they start with some music first? You were in the hall,
Yeah,
right?
in the hall. Yeah, in the hall they started with the live production of the music.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Which is amazing, like if you've ever seen that. I got once to see like the, you know, a full orchestra
I
playing
did that with
the-
Star Wars.
Yeah.
And they had like the Liverpool Symphony Orchestra.
Oh yeah, it was in.
It's
I
incredible.
saw it in like Radio City Music Hall in New York with the Fellowship of the Ring. Oh man, it was amazing.
That's dream material.
It was so good. It was so good. Okay, anyway, here we go with the big Comic-Con trailer.
We thought
Oh man, the like Hill of the Slain. That shot, like I was sitting next to Alan Sisto. He like didn't recover from that shot. Like the whole trailer, he was still reeling from that. Okay, we get Lyndon again.
Again, warm ritual crown.
Yeah, now
I assume
bringing
that's a military kind of
we
honor.
thought our joys
looks
would
something like that.
We
I
thought
love
our
the elf
light
children.
Would never dim.
Sail.
The skies are strange.
Oh man,
I
And that's
can
where
only
I
imagine
lost
the
it.
reaction
Yeah.
there too.
Oh man, that was huge. Right, then we get the battles again. Death of
Trauma,
Finrod.
trauma.
Yeah, trauma. There's the tree, the
Based
white
on
tree in
words.
Numenor. There's Slim Shady.
Beyond the darkness, tempting shadow.
Alright, back to Khazad Doom. There's
Meteor
King
Man and
Durin.
Slim Shady.
There's the
That.
eye opening.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and that's where you can see that she was probably knocked out
aftermath,
and she
yeah.
woke up in
Yeah.
this.
Have you heard of Sauron? He has a
But that's
terrible
all the-
plan for your life. Yeah.
But that's
yeah.
the first time we hear his name too, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah.
That
Adar, I believe. Yeah. Oh man. Right, and there's the sword. Yeah.
If the evil rising is left unchecked, it will take us all.
Here comes the troll fight.
Find the light, and the shadow will not find you.
And that's Adar and the orcs.
and all that like cover from the sun. That was very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Fight with me.
Clean battle armor.
Muriel looks so good. Muriel's costuming, I think, is consistently some of the most gorgeous in the entire thing.
Oh, sea monster.
No idea what the sea monster. That is awesome.
Trust between Hammer and Rock.
I also love the dwarf singing.
Yes.
So,
Eventually,
Oh, the dwarf singing.
Yeah.
Yes. So excited for that. Love this bit with the leaf. Oh man.
you have been told.
It was such a fascinating change of pace in the trailer.
I bet, yeah, because everyone's ramped up, and then it's like, take a breath.
And then just the,
And then you get-
ominous flames.
That,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, pacing, that's purposeful.
Yeah.
Build it up, lower it,
And then,
and then everybody lost their minds.
yes. Okay. So much.
Oh,
so
to
much.
be in the room.
Oh, it was
I miss
amazing.
that stuff.
Yeah. That was amazing.
It's been a long time since we've had this kind of, fan engagement of like getting everybody in a room together and showing them new material and watching them lose their minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So again, Galadriel as survivor.
Yeah.
Clearly at the start, right? As survivor, and not only that, but like showing her setting the helmet on the pile.
Yeah.
Galadriel performing an act of remembrance.
A memorial act.
Yes,
Yeah.
a memorial act.
Like laying a rose on a grave.
Right. But still, like with the smoking ruin.
Right. I mean,
around.
like she's obviously cleaned up and everything, so
Yeah.
she survived. But this just happened.
Yeah, this is not the
This is
distant
not a,
past.
This is
Yeah.
not a memorial.
Yeah, she's obviously had a bath since the whole dust incident,
Yeah.
right? If this is the same scene,
Yeah.
but it's but yeah, I mean, and this is the way that this sets. What I really loved about this was the way that it ups the stakes. This is not just like Galadriel has suffered, and it's going to be hard for her, but she needs to get over it.
Right. No,
right?
this is like girl lived through some stuff.
Yeah, and what's more, like, no, it is important to not stop thinking about this, like to remember.
And that's the conduit for getting us into it too, because we need to know how much destruction
Yeah,
happened before where we are now,
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
and the levels of like destruction that they're capable of. Because, like the showrunner said, we're starting from a place of peace. They're going to engage us that we care about this world and these characters, and then it's going to be threatened.
Right.
So if there's no connection with that, we're not going to feel a threat. So to have these flashbacks to what did happen, we're already aware of, you're going to shake my world.
Right,
Ooh,
right.
Yeah.
Right,
That's
exactly.
great.
Yeah, so, and of course, this provides memories of the Hill of the Slain. So there's a scene, there's like an actual hill that's constructed of corpses.
seen that.
And the green grass grows and stuff.
Yeah.
This, I don't think is that. These seem to be just helmets.
Yeah.
We
don't see the
I don't think there's actual bodies in here.
But it also looks like all the bodies might have burned, so maybe the helmets survived.
Or what's left, yeah.
Because if she's covered in ash,
Yeah.
everything was incinerated, but maybe the helmets are fireproof.
Man, such a powerful image just to show like the magnitude of loss, right? Like this is, and again, her on her own, her isolated, her like, again, from this shot, she's presumably not the only one who survived, like in the world, but like in this shot, this is like post-apocalyptic Galadriel, right? Is
Yeah.
what this looks like here.
Have you ever been to the Holocaust Museum in DC?
I haven't yet.
That reminds me, there's a pile of shoes.
Oh
right?
yes, the
It's
pile of
just-
shoes. I've heard
Yeah,
of this.
it's the same
Yes.
like humanity, you
Yes.
know, just
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. No, absolutely.
impactful,
Absolutely.
incredibly impactful.
And okay, hang on. So I'm trying to
Oh, okay, are we
use your
reading?
tools
Yep.
to do my close reading thing here.
I love it.
The lighting.
Yep.
Light is on the
source?
left, shadow on the right. Right. We've got an almost even split, though the pile is to the right of center. Right. And so we have the center of the shot falls between the center of the, if you like do an axis of the cone, right, and then Galadriel. The center of the shot is like between those two.
It's pretty much at the chest of Galadriel, isn't it? The very center of that image is just above Galadriel's chest.
Yeah, it kind of is.
We got a little bit of rule of thirds there if you want to play that game.
Okay.
You know, they got the
Right,
tower
the
is one, the tree is one, the horizon is one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the light source is really interesting here, having that dark top right corner. If we're talking about progression of left to right.
Well, that's
again.
what left to right. That's what I'm thinking. This is a world going into shadow.
Yep, that's not pleasant.
This is the future is not looking good. This is not just. I remember that's precisely the thing that I was thinking of at first. There,
Nailed it. The light's
yeah.
behind her.
and she's facing to the
Yeah.
right as well. So
Yeah.
her back is to the light and her face to the darkness, with the huge pile of death between
in
her
front
and the
of her.
darkness. Yeah, exactly.
And the other side of the pile of death doesn't look nice.
No.
Yeah.
No, it looks just as bad and more ominous. And hang on a second, let's see if we go. Which do we see the clouds moving? The clouds are moving to the
and
right.
they're moving. No, do that again.
Wait, hang on. So this is backwards.
Yeah,
Hang on.
play it
Here we go.
forward.
Play it forwards. Going forwards.
The wind is blowing that way, so
Yeah.
everything's moving to the right.
Yeah, everything's
the
moving to
shot.
the right. Yeah. So that is the future,
Mm-hmm.
the dark future.
Bummer.
Okay. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, I mean, look at her dress whipping to the right there. Okay.
Okay.
Then we get our now familiar Linden shot.
Elrond looking clean and a bit smug.
Elrond looking, clean and happy, looking at
Watching Galadriel get crowned.
watching Galadriel get crowned. I'm presuming now the cloaks look like the gray cloaks of the ice elves.
I assumed this was
ice
a military thing because they all have crowns.
right?
So is this some sort of an honor because she
Again, very Roman.
succeeded
Right,
in battle,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, some kind of thing. Though it's associated with peace also, right?
Clean, chill,
I mean,
gorgeous.
yes. The leaf crown should recall like the crown of the Elven King. In The Hobbit, he's crowned with leaves. And of course, we have the golden leaves, which are, again, the whole autumnal theme that we've been seeing in Linden here.
And the only shot we've really seen of Gil-galad, he always has that gold crown. Isn't he?
Yes. Here's the dinner party, which we've seen stills of. Go out on one side, Durin on the other, Elrond and Celebrimbor present.
I kind of assume that's Galadriel with her back to us.
Over here on the right,
Yeah.
on Gilgalad's left, yeah. That seems likely. The elf children and their little paper boat.
Again, paper boat on a peaceful sea.
We've rarely seen elf children
Yeah.
ever. And it's such a fascinating image. First of all, the bright, it's like very bright, like morning sunlight kind of effect. And
That limb over top is a bit oppressive, though, which is
it
interesting.
is.
Yeah.
Or is it a rock outcropping maybe? Is it like going...
Oh, I thought tree limb, but it could be.
Maybe it's a tree limb. I agree. Yeah, that is this kind of shadow in the top left. Of
And the perspective, too, I mean, the cameraman must have been in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's clearly shot from about an inch above the
Which
surface
is a
of the
little
water. Right?
threatening, but
A little bit, right?
Visually, it's beautiful, though. That upshot, quite pastoral.
Yeah, with
A
the mountains
fragile
in the
paper
background.
boat. I feel like you can infer something there.
Right. Yes. Fragility seems like an important concept there. Everything moving left to right again. The children running left to right. The stream running left to right.
Again, these are good things to note. It's not always going to be.
It's not a rule. It's not a law. I know.
But it's
I
a thing
know,
to be aware
I
of. Though.
know.
Like, oh yeah, look, they are. But
Okay. But again, thinking about the parallels, right? So, I mean, like, if we just go back to here,
Yeah.
the darkness was off on the right, and everything's moving left to
that
right there,
works, totally.
and that's dark. And now, first of all, notice, I didn't notice this before. Everything moving left to right with the darkness on the right, and then, we're going the
Right to
opposite
left.
direction with Linden, right? Linden is going the other way.
Going the other way.
Linden is moving towards the light.
Oh, I like
right?
what you're reading here.
Though the light is in the top right over here. So again, it's a
That's
reversal. It's
hopeful,
flipped,
yeah.
right? It's flipped from what we saw before. And then, right, we get the crowning. Now this is all dark and, we're zooming
Well, and
in,
keep in
but
mind, these
it's-
are also trailers, so we're getting just
Yeah.
like a 2-second
Of
snippet.
course.
So the actual
Yeah.
scene, we might see more camera movement that actually does tell a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes you might not. You might just get a close-up because they need somebody to say a line.
Right. Okay, so this juxtaposition, what is that?
A sail, I assume.
Is it a sail? Is it okay, there's
Right, 'cause
sand.
there's the boats on either side.
Okay, that's the prow of a boat? And that's sand? This is sand. So probably on a beach.
Like setting up their sails.
What are we... Okay. Are we covering something? When I first saw this in real time, I thought like they were draping this over a body or something. I thought it was a death scene. To contrast with the like young life scene that was coming up,
Ooh,
that was coming
interesting.
into it. Like, oh, children, life,
I
little
thought we were
boats.
supposed to notice that symbol, and that symbol didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. Numenorean symbols have mostly been sunbursts so far.
And we've seen a lot of stars, but that's not really either.
I think this could be Harad, like could be southerly, with the sand, though again it's very beach-like. And then we move to Galadriel on the boat. This is part of that swooshing shot with the birds flying around, right?
And here we're moving from right to left, and the light source is in the left side, so going the opposite direction.
Right. She's going back to Numenor. Somebody made the observation that the trailers, like the wide-angle shots of the trailers, always seem to be facing north, so that movement, like from left to right, is also mapping onto west to east.
Oh, interesting.
Like when the meteor goes
Yeah.
across, right? That the meteor is going west to east, and we see everybody tracking it west
Yeah.
to east across. And that would track with that too. The boat, presuming that boat is headed towards Numenor, which seems to be what's happening,
And we're looking north.
they're going east to west.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice if there was that continuity of gaze?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if that's going to work. And then we get the stars. The skies are strange, and the meteor, and Arndir and Bronwyn.
How
Okay.
much do you think they're going to play up this relationship?
I think a good bit, but what I still, I don't know, I think I talked about this last week, but when people are like, they can't do that because there's only 3 elf-human relationships, and I'm like, well, no, there's only 3 that pan
we
out.
know- yeah, or that we know of.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's at least 3 others that we know of, and the one thing they all have in common is they don't pan out.
Yeah. If you think there were only 3 ever.
Right. It doesn't mean that there's,
They just seem to be playing it up a lot in the trailer, so I think
Agreed.
they're looking for some sort of an opportunity to show some romance, and they
Well,
might take this.
I agree, but I think it's, to me, I think, and I might be wrong, but I think that this also works in more than just a romance way. I think that this also shows, it's like also about elf human. This is like this couple also serves as a little like distant foretaste of the Last Alliance as well. And I mean, that seems to be a theme that we see in the trailer with Galadriel and Miriel, for instance, right? Humans and elves joining together to fight the enemy.
It gives us that little culture clash. And,
Right, right. So I think that at the very least, their relationship is going to be, I mean, it necessarily connects with that.
But it'll have some
sort of
layers.
idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
any of these characters are just going to be one thing. Like, it's not just a romance, obviously, but I don't think it'll do them any harm to have some of that in the storyline either.
Right. I think, I'm not sure what this is. That little very brief
That tower.
shot of the tower, yeah. Somewhere in Harad, maybe? Not
Well,
sure.
Wherever
Now we
she
get
is.
Miriel and Galadriel with the Palantir, and this is where, as I was describing last week, my mind like
You lost it?
exploded.
Why?
Yeah. Well,
Were you not expecting it?
no,
Okay.
I wasn't, but I should have been.
Okay.
As soon as I saw it, I was like, well, of course, it has to be there.
Yeah.
But no, the big thing is like how it can be involved in the story, because Tolkien never fully retconned the Palantiri into the Numenor story.
Okay.
There are bits of it that he did, like Elendil looking back, trying to find, if there's anything left of Numenor, right? But actually, like the kings of Numenor having access to Palantiri in Numenor before the fall, and what that would mean. I mean, like, theoretically, the mariners should have had, like, they could have communicated back with Numenor from Middle-earth.
Right.
When they were sailing off, and Tolkien never described that because he invented the Palantiri really late and didn't retcon. So it was, the explosion in my head was like, what? Of course it's there.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course it's there. It has to be there. And what does that mean for
Yeah.
the story? What do you
How
do?
are they going to incorporate
Yeah,
that?
how are they going to
Yeah.
incorporate that? Because
Clearly
this is
it's going to be important.
right. This is not just, so. And what I gather from this, from what she says, like, you know, she's saying like basically it's, you know, like it's true, like, you know, confirmed, right? What we feared. And she puts her hand on it.
Bravely, boldly.
And
No hesitation.
then we see what looks like frost crystals on it, which I think is a yeah. See, then you can clearly see the shards there.
That was somebody's like whole life to make that image
right,
happen.
right. Look, we do get a little glimpse of what she's seeing, don't we? It's her.
It's her. Yeah.
It's her.
Yeah.
I never noticed that because
Me
I
either.
never froze the
I
frame
never
before.
did it this slow.
I can't even take my fingers off it without messing it up. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that's her. That's her looking like a Disney princess.
Right,
in
like
that
totally
shot.
done up with
Yes.
like curly blonde hair and a blue
Yes.
dress. She looks very Aurora from Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah, yeah. In the context of the frost, I was thinking Frozen, but
Okay,
yes,
sure,
yes,
Elsa.
exactly.
We'll go both ways.
Exactly.
I speak Disney.
Yeah, yeah.
Lovely.
But okay. However, the context I take, and then we get the cut to the battle, and this is Finrod's battle.
God, that's a really specific decision though to show her like that and then go to this battle. So
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either. Yeah. What are these trees? Oh, yeah.
Those are the trees that we
Those
see.
are the trees that we saw
at
in the helmet
beginning,
scene.
the
Yes,
helmet.
yes, with the smoke and yep. This is that scene.
Mm-hmm.
So that is clearly the aftermath of this battle.
Yeah.
We see. Can we get any sense of the demographics? The elves are the ones in the
Elves.
shiny armor,
Yeah.
right? So they look to be outnumbered. What, 5-1, 10-1, something like
Something
that.
like that.
We get explosions of fire.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing anything obviously.
More fire.
Dragon. Look at the explosion back there.
Yeah.
Like something just like came in there to make that explode.
Yeah.
And then we get explosions
Lots
here
of
in
orcs.
orcs, and there's Finrod, and then the Kinslaying flash. So this is the Galadriel trauma sequence again.
Yeah. With the dagger, there's a lot of discussion about that.
Yes,
On boards that
that's
we've seen that dagger in all the posters and everything else, and
that it's Finrod's dagger.
Finrod's
apparently, yes, that she's, and then this looks like the rune of Sauron on his arm, the one that's on the sword, and the one that is in the frost.
and it's on the table too, right?
Yeah, the like anvil.
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Galadriel weeping, based on
the
again.
orcs. They're gonna keep
There's all right. We get the white tree with the petals coming from it, and her once again this image of her turning and looking back. That's seems to be the really. And this time, instead of it being Galadriel that she's turning back to look at, when she turns back, we get
this.
the cult figure. So that's I believe that to be the Slim Shady one, right? Looking very cult
Official.
priestess like. I don't know what they're carrying, but it seems to be some kind of ritual object.
Very iconic.
Yeah. Look at the staff
Yeah.
with like the eye.
Like an offering plate, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking down on like the land they're going to corrupt or conquer or whatever. And then we get the famous blue eye close up here. And
Striking.
very striking. Then we get that juxtaposed with this one, who is quite different. Then back to Elrond in Khazad-dûm, as we saw before. And then King Durin looking out a window, which I didn't expect to see in Khazad-dûm, on what looks like a hillside. This could just be like a huge cavern with like a city inside it.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably like some sort of a castle type structure at the top, so you can view out over down one of the valleys of the mines. That. Ooh.
And this is,
got
so
me.
she's upside down here, right?
Yeah.
The eye opening upside down is so disturbing.
Right? It just
Because
sets you off.
you see the motion and you see the eyeball,
And it doesn't match.
and there's
Yeah.
it's just that sense of like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
This is wrong. And then I think it was 2 or 3 times I saw it before I realized, oh yeah,
Can
it's
you
upside
play
down.
it in real time?
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, because it's not on for long, but it's enough to throw you that she's
Yes.
not where she ought to be.
Yes.
And then her getting up from that.
Man, look at the dust on the
Yeah,
eyelashes.
just, how long was that in makeup? Caked on.
Man. And then there's her standing up.
And the fact that there's so much of it on, I agree with you that she's been knocked out because otherwise she would have wiped it away while in battle. So, like,
Right.
she's been down for the count and covered in inches of ash
Yes.
as the world burns around her.
Yes.
But how is she protected? Oh, I'm so curious.
Yeah. No, it is. It's very tantalizing. But again, lone survivor Galadriel is this motif that's been going through this whole trailer, really. We
And
keep coming
absolute
back to it.
destruction. You've not seen what I've seen. I mean, look at that.
Yes. Yes. Yes, you've not seen what I've seen. Like all the things that she has been the sole witness to, as far as we can see, right? As far as we're being shown.
And we assume there's a lot of camaraderie because she was so tight with all of her compatriots in the other shots.
Right.
We assume she's lost them.
Right.
That's a grief on grief on grief.
Yes. And now we get the Dark Tower,
Yeah.
which this is the icy one. We see the snow in the foreground here. Look at the again,
familiar.
light on the top left, darkness in the top right again, right?
And again, also very familiar from Jackson's, I think.
Right, this is going to be, people are going to get the Dark Tower out of this, right? I think this is
Where
the
the
thing they're
bad guy
saying, maybe it's
lives.
Autumno or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what, then there's the, it reverses. It does.
It does.
The light shifts from left to right.
Let's just say bad all around. Play it in real time?
Okay.
But
Left flash, right flash.
Yeah. Just bad everywhere. And that.
Yeah. So that's the Sauron rune right there. That's the rune that's on the sword. That's the rune that's looks to be on Finrod's arm.
And burnt with ice into it. That's
Yes.
powerful.
And yes. And then Theon's arm getting pulled.
Yeah.
The juxtaposition of the rune
And the arm.
and the arm
Yeah.
makes it like it's almost like an anticipation of him being branded.
Yeah.
Right? Especially since he's holding the sword with that rune on it. Right?
Again, feels like dark mark in Harry Potter, but that's
Yes.
also a fantasy trope we hear a lot of, telling scars.
Right. Have you heard of Sauron? Right.
Dun dun dun.
And then Bronwyn's fear.
That
The claw.
stuff of nightmares. And her hiding. I mean, you really do feel that kind of invasion that the orcs are scary.
Yes.
Yeah, like they are known, they are invasive, and you hide from them. You don't
Yes.
make yourself known.
The rising up through the floor.
Yeah. Funny angles.
Oh. Oh man, the like
Ugh.
almost like
Talons.
Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
You know.
Velociraptors.
Yes.
You know, that's
yeah.
Jurassic Park scene.
Yeah.
Discover the legend. So we had like in the beginning, discover the legends. We're very much like at the start of our journey here.
I want to go back and review the text
Yeah.
briefly, but okay. Then we've got Theon looking
Like-
at the sword.
We've got 5 minutes.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes. No problem.
That is so gorgeous.
Oh, yes, the sword recons. And of course, so attentive viewers of the films and readers of the books will recall that what we're seeing here is the reversal of what happens to the dagger that stabbed Frodo. Right? The dagger stabs Frodo and then the blade melts away. It disintegrates
Yeah.
into smoke.
Yeah.
Right? That happens in both the book and in the film. And so we're seeing that in slow motion reverse here with the blade of the sword,
Yeah.
which has that rune of Sauron right here above the hilt with him holding it out
Which
there.
makes me think the sword has a will of its own, which is
Yes.
very.
Yes.
The rings.
Do you want to play my the game we invented last week, the Dead or Nazgul game?
Okay.
where we take characters and try to guess whether they're going to die or turn
become
into Nazgul.
Nazgul.
Yeah, yeah. This I think is Galadriel entering that Galadriel.
Yeah.
And so there we see the rune on an anvil.
Yeah.
Right, which I think is clearly,
Forging.
yeah, clearly forging, and this is, yeah. And then we get the beginning of that fight.
Boom, boom, boom.
So, who's blowing up ships? It's not just setting fire to, it's blowing up. There's explosion. Where are we? That looks like the kind of breastplate that Elendil was wearing. So I assume that this is Numenor. Who's blowing up ships in Numenor and why? This looks like the Numenorean architecture, vaguely, in the background. I don't know why we're burning ships.
Well, I'm going to assume bad guys. That's as far as I got.
Yeah. Why they're exploding. There's Theon. It's okay, honey. I'll support you if you choose to become a Nazgul.
But that's making it a very human moment.
Yeah.
Make good choices.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you. Please don't become the Witch King.
Yeah, please don't follow this path.
Yeah,
because
don't follow this path.
And then
Exactly.
these guys bowing in front of him. And all the sun cover. I like that they played with that they shouldn't be out in sunlight.
I love this guy's helmet.
Yeah.
Like,
Beak-like.
he's really taking his sun cover seriously right there. Right. In fact, arguably thoughtfully shading three of his friends walking in front of him.
Entirely
if he's
possible.
tall enough. Yeah, the deference
Yeah.
is really interesting. When I first saw this, I thought they were just cowering in fear, which I think there is fear
There's
involved.
probably fear. 'Cause
But more and more, it looks like actual bowing, like the orcs themselves care and respect, which
especially
is
the strut that comes before that from
Yeah.
that.
yeah from Adar. I think it's Adar. I believe,
But again, not named, so like
not named.
still
And
a lot of vagaries.
I'm struggling with remembering what I can and can't talk about now because so much has been released. I'm like remembering that.
Remembering a thing.
Remembering
Moving on.
a thing. But I'm like, did that thing? Never mind. Whatever. Safest not to talk about it.
Yep.
Anyway,
Suns on shields. Look.
Suns on Shields, Numenor. So, and this is Halbrand
Roman again.
in Numenor, looking rather Roman. The soldiers looking rather Roman. Not exquisitely Roman, the soldiers, but
Reminiscent of.
with the spears and those helmets and the skirts. Halbrand in simpler garb. So Halbrand in Numenor. Then we got Bronwyn yelling at folks. People cheering.
Swords being raised in unison. I'll join with you. I'll join with you. That's
Right.
the feeling you get
Yeah.
from this.
Yeah,
Look at all
this
this
is the we're gonna
camaraderie.
fight together.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Galadriel arriving in Numenor. We're agreeing. Now we've got Arondir jumping down and kicking things. Okay. Arondir is absolutely
6.
the Legolas of this series.
I'm okay with that. I know a lot of people aren't, but like
I'm okay with that too.
elves can do cool stuff.
Elves can do cool stuff. Okay, I love, again, everything. I've never seen Muriel wear something that I don't love.
Agreed. Her color palette is just
Oh man, and the whole scales thing. We got to see her costume at Comic-Con. The one
was
with
it that
the
good?
oh
Yeah.
they're like translucent mother of pearl, each individual disc. Oh, gorgeous.
See, when they put that kind of detail into costumes,
Oh
like,
man,
yes.
so good. Love the crown, which is like the leaf crown, kind of like horns.
But also like coral,
Yes.
seaweed.
Yes. Really cool.
You know, beautiful.
Just love it.
And the way she carries
Still
herself.
with the petals
Yep.
swirling around. Okay, we've got the dwarf
Dwarf
singing.
singing,
Love the
love
dwarf
it.
singing. A little tender but distressed moment.
Mm-hmm.
Big charge. Galadriel drawing her sword. orcs coming the other direction. Sea
Sea
monsters smashing boats.
Galadriel can swim. Awesome.
Galadriel swimming. I love the like above and below the waterline
Yeah.
things.
Call to arms.
Call to arms. Numenoreans marching. Dwarves marching. Meteor Man and Harfoots juxtaposed in the midst of all the military action and the alliance talk, right?
And this is really the only time we see the Harfoots in this trailer.
Yeah, they're not very much in this
Yeah.
trailer, but I agree. But this is another like again Blue Wizard until proven otherwise because the context of her reaching out to him
Yeah.
is in that like military alliance context right here. And again, it could be misleading,
No,
but
that
still,
makes sense, yeah.
thematically, that seems to be the implication here.
I love that.
Arondir doing Legolas things, and then so things going well
Orcs.
and then less well for Arondir
That
with the orcs. I think I know who that is, but I think I'm not supposed to say.
Yeah, like I think there's a thing there.
Yeah. Okay. We're surprised there's an explosion or something. People are ducking. Galadriel's not happy.
That moment though too, where she closes her eyes, it's almost like an acceptance, like let's go, you know?
Yeah. And again, like this is like a memory. This is like a PTSD flashback that she's having right here. Right? Is she going to wake up like covered by ash, surrounded by smoking ruins again? Yeah. Okay. Well, we don't have time to go through this whole scene. We're moving left to right, and then down and whoosh into flames. Arondir gets pulled back by hands, and then the Balrog.
We talked about Balrog. Okay.
We talked about the Balrog. Okay.
Oh, guys, there's
Whew.
a lot going on.
Look at that. We did 3 trailers.
We did 3 trailers.
How about that?
Oh, we didn't look at any questions, so sorry.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
We have a lot of ground to cover,
we're trying to
and we're
focus
never
in
the
there.
Same space.
Half an hour and a
so,
3-minute trailer. Well, it was only a 10-to-1 ratio of time to discussion to trailer. That's
Pretty impressive, man.
oof. Yeah.
Okay, so needless to say, we're real excited.
Yeah.
I have to say, nothing is making me nervous. Like, everything's getting me excited. Of course, there's still things I'm cautious about. I wonder if
Sure.
we'll be able to tie all this
No,
together.
there are a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Especially about story. That's which of course is
Yeah.
what we always learn least about with trailers. So yeah, people
Everything's
often
so
ask me like,
vague.
is there anything that you're worried about? And it's like, no. I mean, no. And again, as you say, the arrow has all been pointing, and everything I see makes me, there's nothing really that has sort of concerned me.
They can still muck it up, but
Yeah, sure. And again, I
everything looks
don't know how the trajectory of the story is going to go. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how the stories are going to fit together. I don't know how like the dialogue is going to be, just sort of on the ground, not in,
actual
trailers.
performance. I mean, there's
It's
so
not-
many things,
yeah.
but
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about those things, but as far as like conceptual concerns or this looks like they're heading in an alarming direction or whatever, like in general,
Happy.
I'm pretty fine with this. But okay, so we'll see. We should run. I gotta run.
did you say we're not meeting next week?
Yes, next week I'm gone.
Okay.
Next week I'm gone. But we'll be back the week after that.
I'll be at camp, but we'll see what we can
And
do.
there'll probably be like 3 trailers between now and then or something. Who knows?
knows?
Who knows? With the rate these things have been coming, we'll see. We'll see what more we get.
Cool.
We've gotten some glimpses of trailers and things in other countries where
Yeah,
there's been
there's
some footage
a
that we
lot
haven't
of stuff
seen.
that we're not supposed to see that we're getting glimpses
Yeah.
of. So
Well, I mean, people in Brazil are supposed to see it. Why
I'm
can't
like,
we
exactly.
see it?
I'm like, so we've seen little footage with Portuguese over it that has
Yeah.
been real interesting.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. So
have a
yeah,
Google for that if you want to find more.
maybe we can show some of that stuff next
At
time.
least
if-
peel some of it together.
whatever.
But I
Yeah,
think there's going
we'll
to be
see.
a lot of new content in 2 weeks' time.
I suspect so. Lots of pictures.
Yeah.
Anyway, also we might have guests as
We
well.
might, yeah.
I met some folks from the production that I think would be really fun to interview. So we can
Watch this space.
we'll work on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So 2 weeks we'll be back. May or may not be sitting next to each other in 2 weeks. But in any case, might be back to low budget OMH starting 2 weeks from now. Who knows?
We'll see.
Anyway, thanks everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Apologies to live folks for irregularities in my bit rate here. This kind of thing is confusing sometimes and
Thanks for
happens.
sticking
But
with us.
anyway, as I say, if you want to see a clearer recording, we'll post that to both Twitch and to YouTube as well. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Bye now.
See ya.